All right, so let's take care of this. So function operations. So when I say function operations, what I mean is that we will be adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. Although we won't be using an x for multiplying, we'll be using a dot. All right, so let's go over, so we're gonna be doing that with functions. So let's go over a few definitions here. So like terms. So like terms, they have to have the same variable and the same, we'll call it degree. All right, so the degree is the exponent of something. So like when something has an exponent of 2, then you call it like degree 2, that type of thing. So they have the same variable, same degree, they have to be the same, right? So an example of a like term would be like if you had 3x squared and 4x squared, or negative 1/2 x squared. They're all x squareds, okay? So these are like terms. They have the same, the x's, they have the same power, the same degree. All right, so what happens when you add or subtract like terms? Well, when you add or subtract like terms, you get the sum of those things, right? So if I had like 3x squared plus 4x squared, so all that I really do is I take the coefficients and I do the operation. I add them, but the variable stays the same. So 3x squared plus 4x squared would be 7x squared. So the x squared doesn't change. So like if I had, you guys know this already, like if I had 11x minus 15x, I would get negative 2x, right? So you combine like terms basically. All right, so do like terms have to be like terms to multiply them? So no, they don't. So answer to that is no. And this one up here, it would say you add or subtract the coefficient but you leave the other parts the same. You leave the variable the same. All right, so you don't, to multiply, you don't have to have like terms. And when you have pieces that you're trying to multiply, remember you add the exponents. All right, so let's say we had like 5x squared and we were multiplying that by negative 2x to the third. So remember that becomes 5 times negative 2 is negative 10, and x squared and x to the third make x to the fifth. Remember, when you multiply, you add the exponents. And you guys know this. I mean, we've been doing stuff like 2x times x, so we get 2x squared. Okay, all right. You can even do different letters, like let's say you have 4xy and you're multiplying it by 3x squared. Well, the 4 times the 3 makes 12. X and x squared make x to the third, and then the y has nobody to go with, so he just stays a y. Okay. Do the terms have to be like to divide them? So no. I mean, they have to be, like the variables have to be the same to go together. Otherwise, they stay like they are. All right, so what happens when you divide? So remember, when you divide, you subtract exponents. So let's try one like, how about 18x to the fifth divided by 9x? So 18 divided by 9 is 2, and x to the fifth divided by x to the first. So you subtract the exponents, right? 5 minus 1 is 4. Let's say you had, 20y to the fourth, and down here we had, I don't know, how about 30y to the seventh? So 20 and 30 both divide by 10. So I would say to myself, 10 goes into here twice, 10 goes in here 3 times. So I'm still going to have a fraction. And it turns out that my 4 and the 7, so when I have this 4 and the 7, I subtract them. 4 minus 7 is negative 3. So that means I have 3 y's on the bottom. So y to the third on the bottom. Okay? All right, so let's do a little bit of this down here. We're going to simplify each expression just to remember what to do here. So when you subtract, so remember that the parentheses in front is going to stay the same because there's nothing in front of this parentheses right here. So there's nothing in front. So I can just basically drop those parentheses. That's 5x squared minus 8x plus 4. But this negative sign here has to be given, like kind of like multiplying or distributing to each part. So as I go through and drop the parentheses, I write negative 8x squared. Then I have a negative and a negative, so a positive 3x. And then lastly, I have a negative with the plus 7, so I have a minus 7. And then I just look around and combine like terms, right? So I look for, let's see, the highest power is x squared. So I'm going to put this with this. And remember, it's a negative. So I will say that that is negative 3x squared. Then I have to put together my negative 8x with my plus 3x. So negative 8 plus 3 is negative 5x. And then finally the 4 and the negative 7 make a negative 3. And there's my answer. Over here with letter B, I'm multiplying because the parentheses are next to each other. So this is a little bit bigger than you're used to, but still not too hard. I'm going to multiply 4x by 3x squared. Then I'm going to multiply 4x by the 2x, and then 4x by the 1. So that's my plan here. Then we're going to do the negative 1 times the 3x squared, the negative 1 times this, the negative 1 times that, and then we'll combine like terms and we're done. All right, so my first little loop here, I get 12x to the third. Then here, I get 8x squared. And then here, I get 4x. Now I'll do the negative 1 times 3x squared, so negative 3x squared. Negative 1 times 2x, so negative 2x. Negative 1 times 1, so negative 1. And now again, we'll look for our like terms. Okay, so I'll start with 12x to the third. Well, 12x to the third, this guy right here has nobody like him, so he just stays. Then 8x squared, so I guess I'm looking for this guy and this guy. 8 minus 3 is 5, so plus 5x squared. Then my 4x and my minus 2x make plus 2x, and then the minus 1 is just all by itself. All right, and now letter C. This is a division problem. So I'm basically going to take each little piece right here. All these pieces are being divided by 8x. So if you wanted to, you could separate it into 3 fractions if that helps you. So you have 8x to the fourth divided by 8x minus 12x squared divided by 8x plus 16x divided by 8x. And so you just have 3 little problems. So in the first one, 8 divided by 8 just cancels out to a 1. And x to the fourth over x makes x to the third. So you can put a 1 in front if you want. So 12 and 8 right here. 12 and 8 both divide by 4. So this makes a 3 and a 2. So I'm going to get minus 3 halves. And x2 and x cancel out to x to the first. And that's going to be on top with a 3. All right? Or you can just put it next to the 3 halves. So you could write it like this. 3 halves x like next to it. And have x to the third. Or you can put it on top with a 3. And here 16 divided by 8 is 2, and the x's just totally cancel, so plus 2. So just a matter of how you like to write it. Okay, so now we're getting into our function notation here. So, these problems that I was doing before, we can call them f of x or g of x, h of x, like some letter with x. This is just function notation. It's just an easier way to write things in math for what we're going to do at the bottom here. All right, so when somebody tells you this, f of x plus g of x, it literally means to take f of x and write it down, and then plus g of x, and just like fill them in. So here's f of x, so 2x squared minus 7x minus 2, and then g of x is negative x minus 5. So you just replace it. All right, so I got 2x squared minus 7x minus 2. I can drop the parentheses because there's nothing in front of them. And then here, it's like I'm distributing the plus. So plus a negative x. Well, plus a negative x is just a negative x. And then for the second part, plus a negative 5, well, that's just a minus 5. All right, so let's combine like terms. I got 2x squared alone. And if you want to, you can kind of cross it off as you go. You got negative 7x and negative 1x, so it's negative 8x together. And then finally, this last part here, we got the negative 2 with the negative 5. So combine those, you get a negative 7, or subtraction 7. Okay, letter B, we need g of x minus f of x. So I'm going to put g of x first, so negative x minus 5, put some parentheses around it, minus, let me put f of x here, 2x squared minus 7x minus 2. All right, so the first parentheses I can just drop because there's nothing in front of them. But remember here, I'm going to be giving the negative to each part. So I'm going to get a negative 2x squared. I'm going to get a positive 7x and a positive 2. Because as I give a negative to the 2x squared, I get a negative 2x squared. Negative to a negative gives me a positive 7, and a negative to a negative gives me a positive 2. All right. Okay, so now let's just clean this up. Negative 2x squared is the highest power, so I'll have that first. So he's done. Then I got negative x plus 7x, so let's pick next positive 6x. And so if you wanted to put something like that in your calculator, you would just do the coefficients. You would do like negative 1 plus 7. And you get your 6, and then you put the x back with it. All right, so these are done. So then I got negative 5 plus 2, so that makes negative 3. All right, letter C. I want g of x times f of x. So g of x is, I'm going to do this different color so it doesn't spread around. So I got negative x minus 5 multiplied by 2x squared minus 7x minus 2. All right, so it's going to be a bit of a work, but we're going to multiply negative x times each of these parts. And then we're going to multiply negative 5 times each of these parts. Okay, there we go. Negative x times 2x squared makes negative 2x to the third. Negative x times negative 7x makes positive, and it's going to be 7x squared, because you have a 1 right here, remember? Here times here. I'm going to get another positive, because a negative 1 times negative 2 is positive 2, and then I have an x. So now we do the 5. Negative 5 times 2x squared is negative 10x squared. Negative 5 times negative 7x, it would be positive 35x. And negative 5 times negative 2 is plus 10. Okay, so 2x to the third is my highest, so negative 2x to the third is going to stay. So he's done. 7x squared minus 10x squared is negative 3x squared. So those are done. 2x and 35x add together to 37x. So remember, we're adding and subtracting now. And then plus 10. All right, and the last one, letter D, I'll just go ahead and do it up here. It says f of x divided by g of x. So all we're going to do is write f of x on top, 2x squared minus 7x minus 2 over negative x minus 5. And there's nothing I can do to this. Later in the future, we will make you maybe try to, factor the top, like maybe the top factors and then cancels with something on the bottom, but it's not going to happen here and it's not going to work. But for now, like maybe you just get lucky and there's nothing else to do. You just, you literally like put them over each other and you're done. Okay, so that's it. Okay, now down here, last thing. So you should have seen this in Algebra 1. This is where you're plugging in numbers. So when somebody says to you h of negative 2, this is why we have function notation, because it means to plug in negative 2 for all the x's. So I'm going to go to the h function, h of x. I'm just going to write it here. You don't have to do this. All right, but I just want to show you. So basically what's going to happen, in the place of these x's, I'm going to be putting a negative 2. All right, so I write down h of negative 2. So write this down. So what that means is that every place that you see an x, we put a negative 2. So I'm going to be putting a negative 2 wherever there is an x. So it means I put a 2, I put parentheses, especially because it's negative, and cubed, minus 4, negative 2. So you see I put a negative 2 every place there was an x. Now we do an order of operations. Remember PEMDAS, I got to do this part first. So negative 2 to the third is negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2, so it's negative 8. So I have 2 times negative 8. And then back here, I can go ahead and do negative 4 times 2 and get plus times negative 2 plus 8. All right, I still got to finish this. So I get negative 16 plus 8. And so finally, negative 16 plus 8 is negative 8. All right, letter B. Letter B says 2 times g of 3. So basically this is multiplied, right? So let's figure out what g of 3 is. So that means I got to plug 3 in for all these x's here. So g of 3 is negative 4, 3 squared, plus 3 here, minus 5. I'm putting 3 in the place of this x and that x, right? Okay, so I would get negative 4 times 9, because 3 squared is 9, plus 3 minus 5. So I have negative 36 plus 3 minus 5. So I should go left to right. Negative 6 plus 3 is negative 33, then minus 5. So I end up getting negative 38. So I'm not quite done yet, because remember this old 2 right here. So I was supposed to multiply 2 by this answer. So 2 times negative 38. Let's see, that's 76 if I'm right. Let me see, 35 and 35. Oh, no. And 3 more. Yep, 76. Okay. All right, so let's do letter C. Letter C says g of negative 1 minus h of 2. So we have to figure this out. We have to figure this out, and then we'll just subtract our answers. So g of negative 1. So it means I'm taking this problem again and putting a negative 1 in those pink spots. So negative 4 times negative 1 squared plus negative 1 minus 5. So I'm just putting parentheses. So negative 1 squared would be 1. So negative 4 times 1. This turns into a minus 1, basically minus 5. So I got negative 4 minus 1 minus 5. So I have right here negative 5 minus 5, so it's negative 10. And then h of 2, so I'm putting 2 into him. So 2 times 2 to the third minus 4 times 2. So that would be 2 times 8, because 2 to the third is 8, minus, I can go ahead and multiply this, it won't bother anything. So basically you have 16 minus 8, so it would be 8. But remember, my job was to subtract these things. So negative 10 minus 8 is negative 18. And there I go. And that is it. Your job is to do the problems on this page, these 7 problems here. And we'll see you next time.